Good evening, everybody. It's Phil Russertt here with Creatorcon Q&A, episode number 2. We have Ale Garza tonight. I'm the promoter and owner of Creatorcon, which is a true comic book convention where the creators are the celebrities, and we have thousands of comic books wall to wall. Creatorcon is on a hiatus right now because of the current climate, but we will be back with a very strong artist alley. And if you go to www.creatorconevent.com, you can leave your email address and be on our email listing so that you can get the most up-to-date and current announcements for the show. Before we get into our guest today, I do my usual shout-outs to people in the industry that could always use support, use some love. And we'll start with Mad Titan Comics, run by Eric Gunderson. Mad Titan Comics on Instagram is @MadTitan_comics. And on Facebook, it's Eric Gunderson, who is the owner and operator. He has slabs, CGC, he's got key issues, raw books, even the dollar books to fill in your runs if that's what you want. So please check him out. We have LesDudis.com, LESDUDIS, run by a really good person, Andy Lee. It's everything you want pop culture and geek culture. So please go check that out. He does con reviews and so much more. And we have Enrique Lopez, who on Instagram has his show Inking with Kike, which is QUIQUE. And it's on every Monday night. He does live inking and drawing with a special guest. His Instagram and Twitter are at Studio Main EFL, which is Studio MAENEFL. If you go to elopezgil.myportfolio.com, you can also look at his work and you can talk to him about ordering some work. He also has his new anthology book, Stupendous, that is out. If you reach him on Enrique Lopez on Facebook through DM, you can inquire about his new book, Stupendous. We have some Kickstarters that are coming out that look really good. We have a Kickstarter. You go to peerlesskungfucomic.com. It's a dark fantasy, action, and urban kung fu carnage. It takes place in New York City during the 1977 blackout. It kind of has the aesthetic of The Warriors, but it's much more than that. Definitely take a look at that, please. We have an Indiegogo campaign, The Last Goodbye. It's a 32-page one-shot crime noir redemption story. The link will be placed by Christopher in the chat. We also have Christopher Tumulovich, which is my producer, and thank you, Christopher, for putting all the links up in the chat for everything I mentioned. Christopher can also be found at HeroShack.com. He is an excellent writer and artist, and he created his own universe and his own comics. So please go to HeroShack.com to check that out. And last but not least for this evening, we have Toypocalypse. Toypocalypse is run by Patrick and Laura Lynch, wonderful people. And if you go to their eBay store, ebaytoypocalypse.net, you will find a ton of collectibles that are good for anybody, children, horror fans, superheroes, anything pop culture. So having said that, tonight on Creatorcon, we have a famous artist, Ale Garza, who, if you're not aware who he is, he's been in comics for over 20 years now. He started in 1996 with Image. He's worked for Wildstorm, Top Cow, DC, Marvel. You know him on titles like Gen 13, Witchblade, Batgirl, Titans, Graduation Day, and so many more comics and issues and covers. He also had his indie project Ninja Boy, which was creator owned. And with all of that said, we are going to introduce Al to the show. Hey Al, how's it going?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Sorry you had to wait through all that stuff, but you know.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. No worries. Got to get those plugs in there.
Yeah, I try to help out and support all the local people that are, they don't have your fame yet.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if I have that much fame, but I don't know if I wish that fame upon anyone. It's hard to do.
It's tough to be a rock star.
Yeah.
So looking at it, you broke into comics at 18 years old. And I mean, you were right in the big leagues from the start, man. I mean, you're sitting there with Wildstorm, where Image was at the height of its popularity, and you've got McFarlane and Liefeld and Silvestri and all those guys. How is it at 18 years? How is it that breaking in at 18, you're new and you're in, you're right in the spotlight. Gen 13 is a great book. It's popular. You had J. Scott Campbell, all these people, and you got all these big names. Were you nervous? Were you excited? Was it a challenge that you wanted to meet?
Well, I actually got my first start when I was a senior in high school. I self-published a couple books on my own. One was called Wax and one was called Weasel. And Weasel, I actually published through Lightning Comics, who at the time was doing Creed with Trent Kanuga.
Oh,
So
nice.
that was my first major gig, and it did pretty well. I think we sold about 3,000 copies, and that's ultimately one of the things that ended up landing me my gig at Wildstorm. So, it was just something that I always wanted to do from the time that I was really little, and it was just something that I was always driven to do. And then, I came from a small town. I'm from a town nestled right between Napa Valley and Vallejo, California, called American Canyon. So, our biggest store was 7-Eleven and American Canyon Video. But, you go from a place like that where, I was like the big fish in a very little pond, and I was very young. So I was very sure of myself, for one thing. And, of course, yeah, going to Wildstorm, going to, you know, getting that phone call from the man himself to come down and work in that place, and getting there. At first it was, as sure as I was that I deserved to be there, I'm pretty sure all of that confidence was gone after a day or two, because it was definitely very intimidating. Very
I'd imagine.
it was a nice swift kick to the ego to be around all of that stuff, and everybody was honestly great. I mean, I remember the first couple days that I was there, J. Scott Campbell came out of his office and introduced himself, and because they had all of us interns in this area called the Pit, and there was a lot of interns there were pretty big name artists. I'll get into that in a little bit, but yeah, and excuse the cough. It's just it's going to be a constant thing. So, but he came out. He's very cool. Obviously, we had from right here. You had Jim Lee's office. Right here, you had J. Scott Campbell and Alex Garner's office. And right here, you had Travis Schre's office. And down the hall was Dan Norton and Ryan Benjamin and Matt Broom. I mean, the place was just a hotbed of talent. And those were just the guys that everybody knew about. I mean, that didn't even cover who I was sitting next to in the pit, which was Pete Woods and Michael Ryan, who were both had amazing careers, still have amazing careers. And then Carlos Giando, who has also had an amazing career. He was sitting right next to me. And, there was just a bevy of like talent, and Wildstorm was really good at finding people that needed to be in the industry. So it was overwhelming, but once you get your foot in there and you get your mojo going and your groove, and before you know it, you're just another face in the crowd, and you got to really work hard to make sure you can stay there, make sure you can stand out. And it was a lot of fun, but that was my college years.
I'd imagine the education you got there. But your style, the way you draw, fit in perfectly with Gen 13. I mean, I remember getting those books. And so, I mean, did you get the like rookie initiation, or was it really just professional and you just fit right in and did your thing?
No, I was an intern for about a month, so I did a lot of jobs doing packaging art for stuff like beef jerky and like other like random little jobs that the licensing department had come through. I think the first comic book work stuff that I did was I did some trading cards, and then I think it was like 4 pages of was it Scott Clark, his book Allegra. That was my first published Wildstorm work. I did. They needed 4 pages in one night, so they gave them to me to take home and get them done, and I did. And they look terrible when you look back on it, but you know what? You got to start somewhere. And when I got to the studio, my style changed really quickly because the stuff that I had gotten in, I always think back and I feel like I got into comics based on my ability to tell a story. I wasn't the most solid artist. I was more energy and kineticism and like able to tell, like you said, able to tell the story. So once I got there, I got schooled really quick and had to learn all the different various basic drawing things like perspective and anatomy. So my style went through a lot of different like incarnations early on, but everything took time. And when you're that age, I feel like you get impatient a lot, and there was a lot of nights going home and crying because things just weren't happening as fast as you'd like them to. But looking back now, it was actually happened all so quickly that you know went from really not having a clue as to what I was doing to before I knew it, I was handling my own miniseries and stuff like that. And I think 2 3 months in is when I got the Gen 13, because I did my first like miniseries. It never was printed, but I did the adaptation of the Gen 13 animated movie, which was
I
a
own that.
really daunting task because it was done in a style kind of close to like what Bruce Timm does. And the mastery behind an art style like Bruce Timm is there's just so much knowledge and everything's super solid, and that's how come he's able to break it down to such bare minimum lines. And when you're someone like me that at that age who didn't understand that, it was it was really like hard to wrap my brain around it. Like I could probably do it much better now, but back then it was really rough. It was really hard. So
So you had no formal education prior to getting in there, and that's when your real education started. Was when you were now on the big books.
oh yeah, yeah, it was definitely learning on the job.
That's very
That
nerve wracking.
Yeah, that and being in the pit with those other guys. I mean, me and Carlos Deanda both got there, and we're both the same exact age. We were both born in May, but Carlos came from a very studious background. Like he had already finished art school. I think he went to college when he was like 16, something like that, crazy. So he'd already finished art school, and he was really, it's crazy how much you can learn from someone who's like the same age as you, because he's the one who actually a lot of times broke it down and told me the things that I needed to work on, and was able to show me things. But then I was also able to help him and show him how to be loose and how to like, I don't know, like, just like lighten up on the page and like take some chances, because in comic books not everything always has to make 100% sense. So it's just like one of those things, you find that nice middle ground between reality and fantasy, you know, because you don't want comic books that look exactly like real life. I mean, that's what movies are for. But
Well, it's funny that you say that because Image was really popular and it was at the height of the spandex superhero and the flashy costumes, and it was totally unrealistic, And
yeah,
comics today are trying to mirror more realism than they did back then. And there's I when I talk to people, there's controversy of, do you miss the spandex, do you miss the action stuff, or do you really like the realism they're trying to put into it? What do you think about that?
well, I think everything has to evolve. I think there's an evolution to everything, and I mean, I think the '90s was really good for what it was and what we did, and that was the '90s. And then obviously it's it kind of forced people to rethink things different ways to be able to have more sustainability. In other words, you can only look at a dude walking around with a million pads on his body and like big spiky hair. How long are you going to be interested in that story? So it kind of pushes you to tell better stories, to figure out more exciting, interesting ways to draw. And I mean, I feel like most of those image guys, the ones that are still around, I mean, they evolved with it and they've developed like amazing art styles and amazing careers, like not only in comics but outside of comics. I mean, you have a guy like Andy Park who was working on Tomb Raider back then. Now he designs all of the characters for the Marvel movies. So it's like the talent was there. The talent's always been there. And I feel like a lot of us, I mean, I myself, I've done a million things since then outside of comics, but it's like, you know, I don't sit there and go like, oh, I wish we had, I don't know, Blade Blood issue 1 and Tiger Fire. You know, I don't necessarily think we need to be. I think about that stuff now, and I think I could do a really good riff on it. Like I could do like a real like I have some projects that are actually like that, but it's like no, you know, we don't. I don't necessarily feel like you need to have. If people want those kind of books, you can. There's a decade worth of those books. Go check them out. I guarantee you haven't read all of them.
That's for sure. There was a lot of late deadlines, though, I think, for an Image back then. But that was, being that comics were a visual medium, and
Yep.
obviously you had top talent artists back then with Image. How far do you think it goes as far as what weighs more, the art or the story, the writing and storytelling? Do you think it's equal as far as the success of books?
Well, I feel like it has to be equal. I mean, if me personally, I'll be more pushed towards something based on the visuals. It's like I love a beautiful car, but if it drives like shit, I'm not going to pay for it. So
Right,
it's like, you know, it's like it's got to have you got to have a little bit of both. So you can't. I also don't want a car that runs great that looks like fucking Homer Simpson's car, you know. So it's kind of like the same thing, but you know, I think there's a balance. I know that there's like some unsaid like battle between writers and artists and who's more important. You know, most important person is the one putting down the money to buy the shit. Otherwise, we'd have no careers, we'd have no jobs.
that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
you can't really like let your ego get too bruised. I mean, I understand and I get it, and I mean, you know, there's been times in projects that like even like I'll see movies come out and I'll be like, well, why is the writer's name up there, but why isn't the artist's name? Because you'll never see it reversed. And
Right.
honestly, us as artists, for the most part, we're the ones that created visually what everyone's enjoying. So you know, it's just one of those things. I don't know. That's kind of a I could go on and on for about that, but it's really as simple as just you know, people should just I don't know lighten up a little bit. At the end of the day, it's still just comic books.
That's for sure. I've been loving them for 40 years, and that's why I'm grateful to be doing what I'm doing today and meeting people like you. You were at my show back in April, and we had a good time, especially in our car ride. But so after you were at Image, later on, and then you went back again, and you were doing Top Cow work. You did Witchblade. How was
No,
that?
I did for Top Cow. I went. Well, what happened after I left Wildstorm was Wildstorm for a couple of years, and then I decided to go freelance because I honestly I think I can't really remember the reason why, but I did a couple like books for DC and stuff like that, and then I was pulled back in to Top Cow by Christian Leitner and Arn Lucen of Liquid, the guys who colored Battle Chasers and those and Soul Saga and those titles, and they had me do. They were interested in me doing Eve Protomecha, which was my first big main mini series, and that was the one. I think that was '99. Yeah, '99. I want to say, and yeah, so that was like that was my step back into Image. Top Cow. I'm not sure if Top Cow was with Image at that point because I remember Top Cow left Image for a little while before coming back,
Yeah,
but yeah, so that's what pulled me back in there, and of course that was a dream come true project to be able to work with those guys. I mean, I was the world's biggest Joe Mad fan for most of my childhood, my teen years, and then to get a chance to work with them after they had worked on Battle Chasers and to have my stuff colored by them, I definitely didn't feel like I deserved that, but I took it, and it was an amazing experience.
you had said when you first came in, you were young and you kind of had a little chip, and then you kind of learned to be a little more humble, and then you started to really gradually form your style and things like that. At this point where you're now working with Top Cow, did you find your style? Did you feel more comfortable and confident that okay, I belong here? I mean, I know you just said that working with Joe Mad and all that, but did you feel like you earned your place at that point? And You know, a
Well,
nice balance of humble and confident.
I think the thing that happened at that point was I had been at Wildstorm for a good 2 years, yeah, 2.5 years, and I had had so many voices in my head of you have to be able to draw this way, you have to do this, you have to do that, and I think when I started Eve, I was out on my own, and I kind of went back to like the stuff that excited me when I had started at Wildstorm. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to start incorporating more of these like old ciphers and concepts that I had in my mind of when I very first started. And I'm going to incorporate that with the knowledge that I've learned. And I think that's when my style started to kind of develop. That's when like some of the things that you'll still see in my artwork today, that's when they started kind of taking shape. And it was definitely good. I feel that I was on my own at that point because when you're in a studio environment, it's very beneficial, but at times it can also kind of hinder you when you can become completely obsessed with pleasing the other artists next to you and forgetting to please yourself. So
Right.
I found when I was there a lot of times, and when I came back to Wildstorm for the second time, I had had that confidence and I was able to say, well, this is the way I want to do this. And, obviously it must work because I've had a moderate amount of success out on my own. So everything kind of happened for a reason and at the right time. And I don't think I could possibly change it and have a better outcome. So,
When you were working with Image as the big umbrella, were they loose with as far as your creativity when you were going panel to panel doing sequentials, or were they kind of on top of you? You know, because
well,
Marvel and DC, I hear, can be kind of strict with their scripting.
well, no, I mean, the thing is when we were doing Eve, it was with Christian, mainly with Christian Leitner, the one of the two creative pairs of Liquid. And basically, I mean, it was his book. It was his creator own book. It was his ideas. So, I mean, I'd go up there for weekly visits to turn in pages and to sit with him. And, he'd kind of impart a lot of his knowledge. And most of his knowledge wasn't necessarily so much how to draw stuff, but how to put things together to how they are successful. Like, you know, and this is a guy who's had huge success. I mean, he still is, even in video games. But, it was even as simple as him picking up comic books that we all knew and loved at that point and flipping through it real quick. And he's like, flip through it real quick. And it was like, okay. And then like, he's like, what did you notice? And like, it was things as simple as I was like, did you like it? Does it interest you? And I was like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, why? And it would be like, oh, and then he would go in and he'd have me count like how many big images there were in that story, like splash pages or 3/4 splash pages and whatnot. And like each one of them would probably have about 4 or 5 in each book. He's like, that's what draws you in, is because that there's something exciting in there. That there's something and those were just like little mind tricks that I've kind of ingrained into my head. From that point on, I was like, when I tell a story, when I lay it out as a whole to see it, to where when a person is buying it, they can open it up and like even flip through it real quick and be like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And I feel like that's like a trick that's really paid off well over the years. And it's just one of those things. I mean, Image, the umbrella of Image, I don't know if that was, they never really have any say about what individual creators or whatever do. I mean,
Right.
even when we're at Wildstorm, you have your editor. For the most part, if you're drawing a book or a regular series, I mean, for the most part, they trust you to do what you're going to do. I mean, the only person that would ever ask me to change anything might have been a writer. And even then, most of the time, you can ask any of the writers I work with. I usually was like, no. So, so I don't want to change that.
So you're coming into the industry and you're in Image and under Wildstorm, etc., and they're a little more free flowing. And then you're going and doing DC and Marvel work. What's the Is there a contrast there? Like, was it a tighter ship that you had to adjust to?
Uh, yeah, I feel like there was. I mean, I feel like obviously there's the Marvel way of storytelling, like the way they hand you scripts, which I remember I think was kind of jarring the first time I did a Marvel book, and it was like a plot. It wasn't so much a script, and it
Okay.
was like something they had to learn to do a little differently. I mean, honestly, like I feel like for the most part with all of my experiences, I didn't really I wasn't edited a lot. I guess I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe it was a little bit of both, but I don't feel like I was, I don't feel like I ever had like editors like asking me, "Oh, this doesn't work. You got to redo this storytelling, da da da," or "You got to draw more here or less that." Usually for me, and this is what happened to me early on in my career, and it still kind of haunts me, is editors figured out that I was fast, so that they could, I could be given a book and be like, "Oh, we needed to this last week, so you got to get it done," which is fine and all, because, but the problem is I usually get to spend maybe I get to spend like a fair amount of time on like half the book, and then the second half of the book is like, well, shit, now I got to get it done. Now I got to do like 3 pages a day, 4 pages a day.
Can you do
But
that many in a day? My God.
oh yeah, yeah, I could draw. I'm really fast, but that's the problem when it's like when you bring home A's in grade school, and then your parents expect you to get A's all the time. But so if you can show them you can turn around 2 3 pages a day, they're gonna want you to. At this point, I'm glad that those days are behind me.
So
Anybody who's like brings that up now is like you. That was like my career when I was in my 20s was a constant headache. I think one time I was up 2.5 days in a row, and I don't even remember falling asleep. Like I just blacked out, and then I woke up like 8 hours later and was like, "Where am I?"
and there was no alcohol involved.
No, nope, nope, nope. Not then. I don't even think I was old enough to drink.
So you've worked with some good writers and everything. Any writers that you felt you gelled with really well, or that their form of like sending you a script or a plot worked well for you?
Uh, I think they all had their merits. I feel like I enjoyed working with each one of them for different reasons. I mean, I definitely, obviously, I mean, working with Chris Claremont was like, like from a fan standpoint, that was like a dream come true. And Chris was very, like, actually very open to like my ideas and stuff like that, which was, I mean, he didn't have to be. I mean, I was what, 23-year-old kid, like pretty much like didn't know what I was talking about. The fact that I even questioned things, I think about it now, it's like, oh, holy crap, like I can't imagine. But I still see Chris every once in a while, and he's always happy to see me, and I'm happy to see him. But him, Judd Winnick was amazing to work with. Scott Lobdell was fun to work with. Uh, I think the one guy, obviously, because I'm wearing my sunglasses, I think when I worked with Joe Casey, was it Joe Casey? I can't, that I worked with on Supergirl. I remember getting into this thing with them about Supergirl with him in editorial because I wanted to put Supergirl with a headband on, and they just didn't get it. They were just like, I don't understand like why like girls don't wear headbands these days. I was like, that's not true.
If it
I
was
was
the
like, no.
'80s, it would have went over well, like Olivia Newton-John and Let's Get Physical.
Well, my whole thing was I was I was fulfilling my side of a bet from a fellow artist that I could get Supergirl back in a headband
Right.
from the 80s. Like I was like, oh, I mean, I'm not trying to act like I was cool or anything, but I was out at that time and I was like in the scene, and this was right before American Apparel started selling headbands, like, in droves. And like I was like, girls wear headbands. I was like, like hipsters wear headbands. I'm like, she's supposed to be young, hip. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna leave it. So I basically drew it on every page, so there was no way they could even do patches to change it. And
Well, hey,
then, so instead, and I always thought that this was really funny, he he changed the dialogue in the book to like to have one of the characters at like it was really brilliant the way he did it. And he had one of the characters asking like Supergirl, like, why are you wearing a headband? And like Supergirl, like, I didn't even draw the artwork for this to say any of this, but he did it in a way that it worked perfectly, and it was like pretty genius. She's like, apparently everybody's wearing them nowadays, so it was like a little jab at me, and I thought that was pretty funny because I took the initial jab by saying I'm going to draw her with a headband in this whole issue, so you guys aren't going to do anything about it. But yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've gotten to work, even in recent years, rest in peace, getting to work with Anthony Bourdain. That was another amazing dream come true that I could not have predicted in a million years from my career. The opportunity to like even be exchanging emails with him at like 1 o'clock in the morning, working on this book is surreal experience that like I'm very lucky to have had. And yeah, it's just a very blessed career so far. It's just like I like to call myself Homer Simpson because I don't really know how it happens. Just good stuff happens. I'll probably be in outer space this time next year. Like I'll be an astronaut.
Well, the way things are going, we may all be recolonizing somewhere.
Yeah.
But so, tell me about Ninja Boy. What made you decide to start doing your own own project, and what sparked the whole thing behind that?
Well, after we did Eve, I had a small modicum of success. And I remember celebrating that modicum of success because I made the Wizard top 10 artist list. And I think me and my buddy who wrote Ninja Boy, we were in San Diego and somehow ended up in Tijuana till 4 in the morning. But but we used that success, and I think it was a Comic Con like in '99, and we had a booth for Eve, and this gentleman came up to me, and he was the vice president of children's programming for CBS, and he was looking for new ideas. And basically, I had went home after that and like came up with a million, like I don't know, half a dozen like concepts. And Ninja Boy was the one that stood out. Me and my buddy Alan Warner, we grew up on ninja stuff. I mean, we grew up on American Ninja and Ninja Turtles and all that shit. So it was like, well, like, we should do a ninja book, but we couldn't come up with a name for it. And then my buddy, fellow artist JJ Kirby, it was like, just call it Ninja Boy. I was like, oh, okay, and it worked. So we Ninja Boy was a funny thing because we actually like we took it back to that guy I had met at the convention, and we did meetings with MTV, Sony, just about everybody you can imagine in Hollywood, Nickelodeon, and we actually sold Ninja Boy as a cartoon to the kids WB before we even knew it was going to be a comic book. And
Wow.
what happened was I had done promo art for all the projects, obviously, and I don't know. I was riding the wave of being cool and pulling meetings in Hollywood at 21 years old, wearing my suit and everything, and found my way back down in La Jolla at Wildstorm. And I think, yeah, I think I had ran into Jim again, and he asked me what I was up to, and I showed him the Ninja Boy stuff, and he's like, "Well, you got to do a comic book of this." And I was like, "You know what? I do need to do a comic book of it." So that's when I got my second offer to come back to Wildstorm, and that's when my second 10 years started there. And we did do it, and it did pretty well. They were wanting to launch a new line of Eastern inspired comics, and I think Phillip had a book there under the same banner, but Ninja Boy was the one that let it off. And it did really well. I mean, issue one I think sold over 60,000 copies.
Yeah.
And initially they had thought that it was going to be a cliffhanger book because you had all those titles: Battle Chaser, Danger Girl, uh, Crimson, Steampunk, or yeah, Chris Bachalo's Steampunk book. And I think initially everybody thought it was going to be a cliffhanger book, but then it was kind of like, well, no, we'll use it to kind of headline this new line of books they wanted to do, and it worked out well. I mean, obviously, first issues always sell really well. I think by the time the first series was done, the numbers weren't quite as high, and I had gotten to a point where I was like so frustrated. And if you read the book, like the fans loved the book, like it was definitely well loved by fans. But I that's why I always say I'm the original Game of Thrones, because I was like so frustrated at the time. I was like, fuck it, kill everyone with the last with issue 6. And I like literally like we were like like me and the writer Alan are like, all right, let's kill everyone. And like, yeah, like literally, like we just all these characters that we had built up, and they were for the most part really cute, lovable characters. Like issue 6, this is the last like 6-7 pages, everybody dies, but they don't really die. They didn't really die. It just made it look that way.
Well, it's comics. Nobody really dies.
Yeah. But that's how it came. It started off as a show at Kids WB, and then somehow ended up becoming a comic book, and it's a lot of fun.
So Keith Brunswick was asking, will there be a Ninja Boy 2? Like, will you revisit it at some point?
Yeah. Actually, we did a Kickstarter a couple years ago that I'm still working on getting this next issue out, and it's not that it's not done. It's done. It's just there's just so much that goes into running a Kickstarter that I wasn't even aware of, that when I did it the first time, that it was like it got to be a little bit overwhelming, and then certain things happened, and it just kind of got out of control. So it's I'm hoping I should be going to print in August. I was going to be going to print in July, but I went and got that nasty bug that's going around, and that set me back for a couple weeks. And so we're working on that. And yeah, Ninja Boy Volume 2 is definitely, we've written out all 6 issues, Alan and myself, and the first issue's drawn. And then it's just one of those things that at this point in time, it's really hard to survive and make money. So it's kind of hard to do things that don't pay you when you have something that is paying you. So we are working on it.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work before you even see anything, any dividends.
And the thing is once, like, even in the first issue, you get all of the information of what happened after that last issue of the first volume. And I think me and Alan always had that. We always knew we'd come back to it. It took a lot of years to get the rights back from DC, but yeah. So I mean, we're working on it, and I have other.
Is it going to be a direct sequel?
What's that?
Is it going to be direct sequel, like continuing from the last one, or is there a time jump, or you not say?
There's a time jump. It's probably It's probably about 10 years after, so he's not really a ninja boy, but but there will always be a ninja boy. So that's.
So it'd be like Ninja at Teen Angst. Is that
yeah. So we introduced new characters. A lot of the old characters are back, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, if anybody wants to see a PDF of the first issue, they can message me on Facebook, and I'll send it to them, especially if you're a big fan. So
awesome. By the way, Norm Ratman, the famous inker, as everybody knows, had said you were a rock star. So Norm's a good guy. Geraldo Borges, I hope I said that right, buddy. He asked you, which new artists call your attention today? Like, who's piqued your interest and caught your eye today?
You mean outside of my my mentor and inspiration, Ryan Kincaid?
We're not even going to get into the jokes that revolve around that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem when you've been doing this so long, 25 years, people forget, and then all of a sudden you draw a cover for something and someone's like, "Oh, you draw like Ryan Kincaid." It's like
yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's just a running joke that Al came first, obviously, and Ryan's a great guy, he's a great artist. And they have a similar style.
There's a great story of Art Adams posted something like that as some guy at the Apple store, Mac store. He's like, "Oh, you're a comic book artist?" And like, I think Art posted, he's like, showed him his art. He's like, "Oh, you draw like J. Scott Campbell." So it's funny. It's fun. I like to give Ryan crap about that, but
it's all good fun.
As far as artists nowadays, I think Saya Ohm's doing some amazing artwork. She's always posting up really cool stuff. Like, I've seen her like just grow leaps and bounds over the years. Who else has really been exciting me lately? Kenneth Roquefort's always doing great artwork.
Great stuff, yeah.
I mean, you always have the usual suspects, like Humberto Ramos is still going at 125%. You know, there's so many, like, I don't know how some of these guys do it, and I know people are like, well, they're digital artists, so it's a little easier, and that's not true. You still have to have the ability to do it, but yeah, there's like so much great artwork coming out. I mean, Mahmoud Asrar, I like his artwork a lot. Koi Fam's doing some amazing commissions on a daily basis. I don't know how these guys do it, like, but I see them posting like 2, 3 beautiful commissions every day. So
Yeah,
it's
great
it's
artists,
pretty
everyone.
it's pretty insane. I mean, the talent level has definitely gotten much more competitive over the years. I mean, it's always been competitive, but you know, I think then I think now that we're more of a worldwide group, it
Right.
really like you. I'm really glad that I have that Ale Garza name to rely on. I'm glad that I was around 25 years ago because you know it's crazy out there nowadays how talented and how amazing, like, you know, all these young artists are.
Well, Russ Cassidy said that you need to make a comic about you and Gus cooking because I know you
Oh,
love to cook.
I do love to cook, and now Gus has me up every morning because he knows how to make pancakes. So every morning we're making pancakes, which is good and bad because I don't need to be eating pancakes every morning. I'm already getting fat
You
enough.
look like me.
Yeah. But yeah,
So,
no.
so after everything you've been through, and you're gonna do Ninja Boy, obviously, and I know you did some Marvel stuff. You had done the Marvel Knights, Spider-Man, and you mentioned Supergirl. You've done Batgirl. You've done a lot of things. You work with a lot of great people. If you could choose a creative team right now on and whatever title, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Uh, I mean, I would love to just be able to do Fantastic Four. I don't really need a writer. I feel like I've been doing this shit long enough. I could write a story,
Okay,
you
so
know?
let's see it. Let's all pitch for it, people.
Yeah. Yeah, just like a classic story of Fantastic Four with all the cosmic Jack Kirby craziness that people love, that I loved. So that, you know, it'd just be fun. And I also have a Vampirella project that I'd like to get done. So if Nick comes to his senses and approves it, it'll be a blast. So it's just like a 30-page one shot of me drawing Vampirella for more than just one sexy pose on a cover. So I think those are the two that I kind of have on my mind right now.
What about Ryan Kincaid? You gonna get on one of his covers? What's going on?
I've already drawn 2 covers for Ryan.
Do you have two covers now? I didn't even see them.
Yeah, I've drawn
Maybe Ryan's jealous he's not promoting them. I don't know.
I've drawn a Persuasion. Yeah, I've drawn 2 Persuasion covers. So I think, yeah, even on his most recent one, I did the Carmen San Diego cover. So
Oh, okay, cool. Do you have
yeah,
any work you want to show or anything like that, or do you have a commission list open for people, or?
I'm still wrapping up. I did a signing for Comics Elite about a month ago, and I got 80 commissions to bring home. So I'm still wrapping some of those up.
Wow,
Not really taking any right now. I still got a lot of people I got to get taken care of. Just living off of cover work and selling those originals is what I got going right now.
nice.
And yeah, I mean, it's it's a little worrisome, like when the companies will be opening back up and starting new projects. But you know, I got my fingers crossed for this Vampirella one, and then I've been hoping to hopefully I can convince Nick to do a couple things. Well, there's a couple different things that I'd like to do with some of the characters he has at his disposal. But you don't need to see any new artwork. You see my artwork all the time. If you want to find it, you can look it up.
We also see all your funny memes.
Yeah, a lot of memes. A lot of memes.
For those who don't know, Al just got over COVID. Actually, thank God, you're doing all right. I know you still got a bit of a cough left, but good thing that you're getting healthy. That's a good. With everything that's going on, thank God, we're not seeing you in the news or on Facebook for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I didn't die. I didn't die. And honestly, I wasn't even going to say anything about it because I just didn't want, you know, I didn't. I didn't feel like it's like most things, like most private things in my life outside of me teasing, badgering my wife, like for her to touch her body. Like most things, I like to keep private. So, but
Except that you announced it on Facebook.
I understood why I needed to like I'm really good friends with Joe Benitez, and you know he made it a point to me. He's like, it's important that you share that experience because there are a lot of people that don't think it's real, or they think it's a hoax or whatever. And thank God I was slightly healthy going into it, but you know what I went through, I wouldn't wish upon any elderly person. I wouldn't wish upon any person with any underlying health conditions. So
Right.
I'm very thankful that I got through it, and hopefully I'm a little stronger now because of it. I mean, I have a cough, but I think I can manage that if that's the worst thing I got out of it. But yep, I think eight or nine of us tested positive in my close immediate family, and it was just because someone decided they needed to go to a bar, and it wasn't me. So it happens really fast, you know. And then it's weird how it will skip over some people because I don't think my wife got it, but you know, even though she was like in direct contact with me. But I've heard other stories of that, like people whose girlfriends got it and then they didn't get it. It's like, you know, who knows? But just be safe. That's all it is. Be
Absolutely.
safe, be courteous, be considerate, and we'll get this shit over with. And then we can all play some touch football in the backyard.
Right. So I
Yeah.
asked this question last week, and I'm going to ask it pretty much to everybody at the end of the show. If you could go back 30 years and talk, well, I don't know how old you are now. Maybe 30 years is too far. But if you could go back to before your career started, just before, what advice would you give yourself?
See, that's the thing. It's like I would just be like, stay the course. Because I mean, everything in my career that's happened, good or bad, privately or publicly, you can't change it because otherwise I'm gonna be right here talking to your beautiful face right now.
Oh,
So, you
shit.
know,
You had me at hello.
I mean, I could sit there and say I'd be less of an asshole, but you know what? Being an asshole worked at certain times. So,
Well, I'm sure, having a little bit of a chip on your shoulder actually helped you back then. I mean, because let's face it, there were some big guns there, and you had to have confidence for them to believe in you, right?
I mean, I have the story of, I think after I was at Wildstorm initially in '96, I think I was there for, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 months? And they had a big series of layoffs because, I mean, '96, '97 comics weren't doing too hot.
Right.
I mean, I went into Jim's office and I told him, I was like, you're not going to, because I was one of the guys that got let go. And I was like, you're not going to let me go. It's like, I was like, you didn't bring me here 6, 7 months ago, 5, 6 months ago, just to let me walk away right now. It's like, you haven't given me enough time to do what I'm here to do. I was like, oh, there's no way I'm leaving. Sure enough, it's like, you're right. You can stay.
Well, there you
And
go. It works for you.
instead of going out and packing up my stuff and going home, I was like, no, fuck this. So I remember, I mean, maybe it was just some of that confidence of growing up, hearing my mom tell me how special I was every day. I was like, fuck this. I was like, I ain't going home.
Did you
And
tell my mom you said I was special? You're not getting rid of me.
yeah. And hey, I was there for another 2 years after that. And I got to do, I think after that, I got a Deviate annual. So that was my first big book that I got to draw all by myself. And
Nice.
then, and then, yeah, and then I got Ball and Chain. So it's one of those, and that's being made into a movie with The Rock and Emily Blunt now. So
Oh, is it? Wow.
yeah.
So you are a rock star. You're a superstar at this point. Look at that.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Now Scott's
Well,
been a pretty good guy. He definitely, I definitely appreciate the fact that he's bringing me in on that movie deal. So that's pretty nice.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That catapults you because as much as artists can be famous in the comic industry, that's in the comic industry. But once you start doing the movies and getting credits in there, you start transcending this industry and getting out into pop culture even more. I mean, that just helps a brand even better. It's worked for quite a few people. So I wish that for you. Before we wrap things up today, does anybody have a question for Al? Anything you want to address or ask him or anything?
Nothing. How many people do we have watching? Like 5?
No, there's 20 people right now. There's 20 people live right now, but we actually get a lot of views after because it stays up. I have over 1,400 views on the last one, so this will probably rack up around there too.
Well, plus I'm not really drawing, so I mean, people probably came to see drawing, not to see me with my sunglasses on in my kitchen.
Christopher Tmolovich asked, do you pencil and ink your own work, or do you leave it to other inkers, or do you prefer to add to that? Do you prefer to ink your own work, or would you rather just send it to someone?
I don't mind inking my own work. I mean, I'll always. This is one of the things maybe coming from that generation of the 90s and beyond or before then is, I've always appreciated the concept of the team, like the art team, like the penciler and the inker. I mean, so I mean, right now a lot of times I'll do my covers with Mustafa Musa, inker extraordinaire.
Yeah, he was just on before. Good guy.
Yeah, and he does he really complements my work well, and it's funny because I feel like he does a lot of heavy like brush type lines, whereas when I ink myself I do a lot of shorter tickier lines. Like I'm more of a Terry Austin type guy.
Okay.
But
Oh,
and
still
he's more of a I feel like Mustafa's more of like a Mark Farmer type guy. And if you're truly nerdy about comic books, you just got that whole, you understood exactly what I just said. So, but yeah, I still enjoy working with inkers. I also enjoy but for when I do commissions, and I've allocated myself to only doing black and white commissions now. I have retired from Copics just because I'm not a colorist, and I just got tired of spending money on those damn things. And I didn't get into comics to draw or to color stuff. I got into comics to create comic art, black and white or penciled artwork. So that's what I do now as far as commissions go. And what the beauty of that is it gives someone else work, because if you want it in color,
absolutely.
there's amazing color artists out there looking to make an extra couple bucks, and you'd be helping them out as well. So
Absolutely. Mustafa put up smiley faces for you. I don't know if you can
go.
see the messages I'm putting on the screen, but
I can see them, yeah.
William Wolford, who I know is an up-and-coming inker, he just wanted to say hi and glad you're recovered and healthy. We'll see you next time you come to San Antonio, Texas. Thanks for hooking him up with the pencils as well for my poster. We'll hit you up later for more smiley face.
Sounds good, William.
And
hopefully we'll be out in San Antonio soon. I'm very good friends with Apple De La Fuente, and I'm, as much as I feel like I got burnt out on shows for a while, I'm really missing them. So it'll be great to be out and doing those again, and doing them safely and nobody being at risk. So hopefully next year we'll be back out there greeting all of you guys face to face, guys and gals.
As much as obviously the pandemic is not a good thing for people, I do think right before the pandemic, comic conventions were oversaturated and they were becoming just, people were losing interest. The bubble was starting to burst, I think. And I think if you can take something good out of this, and I don't mean to downplay the bad side, when comic conventions come back, they're going to have to up the game and change things up to bring the interest back again. And I think it's going to be a good thing for conventions to, like you said, you were feeling burnt out for a while, but there's a freshness you're going to feel again. And I think it's going to be good. And you guys are all, God willing, when everything's healthy and everything's safe, you'll be coming out in droves, and the fans are going to be loving it. They're going to come out and they're going to be able to spend time with you guys. And I think that's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
But we actually have a few questions now from some people. So Keith Brunswick asked, would you want to do an X-Men book?
Not really.
Should we ask why?
I would love to do Wolverine and Spider-Man. The thing is none of these characters, I feel like, and I mean, I'm not saying anything to like any detriment of where the characters are or where they've been, but they're not per se the characters that I grew up with. So I guess maybe I've gotten too old to have to function solely on nostalgia.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Like, I would love to draw. I mean, I have the most amazing Wolverine versus Spider-Man story in my brain that I would love to draw and get paid to do. But as far
Why
as
don't you
going and
pitch it?
drawing the X-Men now, like in my 20s, maybe in my 30s, I would have been super excited about it. But at this point, I don't. It would just be so much work. It
Well, you do bring
really
up
would be
a point
so much
though about
work.
the nostalgia and how books were. I do think what would, and this is just solely my opinion, I do think what would help with some of the stagnation I see in the industry right now is if they did throw a little nostalgia in. I know that you got to reach the new generation. You have to reach the new demographic. But if we don't alienate, if you can find a way to not alienate the old school people and do a nice amalgamation of some paying tribute to the past and giving something fresh and new, I really think it would freshen up the industry right now. You know?
What I don't have, like I said, I have nothing against the books or the stories they're telling now. I'm just saying, for me, being 43 years old, the idea of drawing a book with, like, 8 to 10 characters, it's just
It's too much.
yeah, it's just too much. But like I said, Wolverine versus Spider-Man, I'm there. Can even throw Deadpool in there for fun.
Yeah, there you go. Well, with your sense of humor, you could write Deadpool pretty well. I'm sure him and
I
Spidey.
mean, when I drew Deadpool, when I did it with Daniel Way, actually, I mean, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I got to draw X Force and
Yeah.
get to draw Nightcrawler and Psylocke and all them. That was a lot of fun.
And I see you
So
mentioned Nightcrawler because you know he's my favorite.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. So yep, probably no X-Men in my future though. So that's okay.
So Mark Torres asked, "What is your weirdest?" And he put it in quotes, "commission." I've heard stories from other artists. Do you have one?
Uh, the weirdest one that I've done, or the weirdest one that didn't do. So
Oh, either way.
the weirdest one that I didn't do was somebody who wanted Spider-Man without his bottoms on. So they wanted pantsless Spider-Man. So
Okay.
and that was fine. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really want to draw Peter Parker's dangler,
I
but
was gonna say, where's the webbing come from?
yeah, the weirdest one that I did draw was it was a Supergirl, and it wasn't like, it was just her in her costume. They just wanted her feet in the foreground and her toes spread apart. So I was like, sure,
Okay.
whatever. I was like, I
Whatever
know what
happened
you're gonna. I
before.
was like, I know what you're gonna do with this. That's fine. I'll do it. You know, drawing toes spread apart is a lot different than drawing Peter Parker's balls
Angel,
hanging down.
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. I'll paraphrase if I can, Angel. He's asking, do cover artists still get jobs, or they have to be a comic book artist? So I think he's saying, can you get hired to just be a cover artist? Which I know Tyler Kirkham, a lot of guys are doing that now. They're not doing interiors. But I mean, do you still have to pay your dues doing sequentials before you can just become a cover artist, or I mean, how does that work?
I don't know how anything works anymore. I don't know. I mean, I guess it just depends on your skill level and your fan base. I mean, I think, well, nowadays you have stores doing uh, exclusive covers, and I think they are at their own discretion to hire whoever they'd like to have do it. So, yeah, you can have a guy who hasn't traditionally worked for Marvel or DC do a cover for them, And there's a lot of artists that I think that start off just doing covers. I mean, I can't think of his name, or is it Art Germ?
Yeah, art term, yeah.
Has
St-
he
uh,
ever has he ever
Stand,
drawn like?
I forget.
Yeah, I don't know if has he ever drawn like an actual comic book. I know he's done a million
No,
covers.
he's just doing covers, just like
Yeah,
Josh Middleton and a bunch of those guys are just doing covers. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, Josh Middleton drew books for a while. He did NYX, and he did
right.
from various Supergirl stories and Superman stories back in the day. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're good enough and the artwork speaks for itself, yeah, I don't think you have to so much necessarily pay your dues anymore to become a cover artist. Not that I don't think you ever had to. I mean,
Right.
if you can draw like Adam Hughes or Art Germ, and you can do a beautiful cover, you can do a beautiful cover. So
But when you're submitting a portfolio as a new guy in, you have to show that you can do sequentials. They don't care about stills and action poses. They want to see you can tell a story, right? So that's what you recommend to artists coming up.
Back in the day when if you want to draw comic books, you got to have sequential artwork. So, you got to have 2 to 3 pages at least of, a recognizable character telling a story. So,
right,
just how it goes. Or you got to be like me and have 2 published books when you're 18 years old. That also helps.
Do you have any advice to give any new or up and coming artists that are trying to break into the industry?
Are you sure you want to do it? No. You just gotta stick with it. You gotta practice. You gotta always be drawing. And I think comic books can be such a great platform to so many other things. And I remember being young and I got offered jobs to work for different animation studios and different video game companies, and some of them I tried out, and it was never any fun because you're just a piece of a machine that produces stuff. And for me, my ego demands that I get my individual accolades. So, in comic books, if you can be successful in comic books, you can carry that success into just about any other field. So, but you got to work hard. It takes a lot of time. And you can go from looking like Johnny Depp to George Lopez, just like I did. So.
You're killing me.
It's a lot of work.
Short. Well,
yeah, a lot of sad, lonely nights.
Well,
until you find that large-breasted, beautiful woman from the Midwest.
Well, you have a beautiful family. From what I never met them, but what I see on your pictures, you've been blessed with a beautiful family. So good on you, man. Like me, you married up.
No, I was pretty when my wife met me. Don't get it twisted. She's the one.
Well, you did say Johnny Depp, right?
She's the one that let me let it go. So I didn't look like this when she met me at the bar.
So she's the reason you let it go.
Yeah.
I hope she's not watching.
That damn happiness will fatten you up real good.
Real quick. But you're the one cooking. How is she fattening you up? You cook.
Well, because I'm home to cook. I'm not out running around gallivanting around town, biting people's necks. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming out today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I really am glad you're feeling better. If I'm sure everybody already does follow you, but if you don't, please follow his page. You got to see his work. It's fantastic. These people probably already own a ton of your books anyway. We will look for Ninja Boy 2. You're welcome back on it. Tell me you want to promote it. I will promote the Kickstarter or Indiegogo, whatever you choose, whatever platform. I'm sure everybody here will. And just let me know.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. I hope I was entertaining. You didn't get to see my eyes because my eyes look really tired because it's past my bedtime.
Well, we can't see you through the glasses. It'll be past your bedtime. It'll be 2 a.m. and you'll be messaging silly stuff. Get out of here.
Well, I'm just saying I haven't started drinking yet, so it's past my bedtime.
Well, so you're saying I'm driving you to drink after this?
Probably a little bit, but that's okay. So. But thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah. Like I said, if anybody wants to check out that first PDF, go ahead and shoot me a line. I'll send you a link to it. You can see what he is now.
If you could direct message me the link, and I'll put it up on here.
Okay.
All right. Good. If you don't mind, hang out backstage for a minute because I'm just going to sign off on the show, and I just speak to you real quick if you have the time.
Okay. Sounds good. Take it easy, everybody. Good night. I love you.
Thank you. So that was episode 2 with Ale Garza. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Just want you to know this Friday, again at 10 p.m., we have Will Conrad. If you're not aware of Will, you should be aware of Will. He's phenomenal. He's drawn X-Men versus Avengers, Superman, He's been on so many books, and he's so talented, and he's also just an awesome, personable guy. He will be here Friday at 10 p.m. I'm not sure if he'll be drawing, but I will be promoting and letting you know what's going on. Everybody here, thank you so much for showing up. Please go to the chat where Chris Tomolovich put up links to support artists, to support writers, to support comic vendors. They are the ones that keep this industry going. As a matter of fact, George Vega just showed up. That's a guy that he's got his 80s Kickstarter that I had posted the other day. Awesome dude, awesome art. You got to check him out. He also had a prior Kickstarter. He has a book that you really should check out, World of M. I read it. I have it. It's great. He's an awesome artist. He's done a lot of work for me. Check out George Vega's art. Check out Russ Cassidy. Go to his page. And again, I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for coming out. I hope to see you Friday at 10 p.m. And I'll leave you with this. Have fun storming the castle.